everybody, and welcome back to Indie Corner Radio. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and I've got a guest who's been here, I think, what, three or four times on this particular show? Maybe more?
Yeah, maybe a few.
I know. I think I have you come back at least once every season just to update yourself because you're always doing something. Every
Yeah,
year you've got something going on. And this year it's Hard Place, which I can't wait to get into. But please welcome Jason Horton. How you doing, Jay?
good man, doing really good. Good.
Good, good.
Got my robe. I'm
I
all set.
see it. And you
Yep.
got your yeah,
Yeah, the
it
hard play
the
shirt.
Hard Place shirt. You
I
got to
tried,
do.
dude. I tried to decide if I should wear it or not. It's just I was wearing. To be quite honest, I did a live podcast yesterday,
Mhm.
and I was honestly still wearing the same shirt. So I
You
was like,
never
you know,
you haven't
whatever.
taken it off, you
No, no.
know?
I mean, I did take a shower, but then I put the same shirt right back on, and I was just like, I don't want to do two podcasts in a row with the same shirt. So I was like, I haven't done one yet with the hard play shirt. You can't really, like the titles down here, so
Yeah.
that's
You
fine.
can't tell. It
And
kind of it
it's a
has a little
cool
bit of a
image.
scream kind of thing to it too. Like
Yeah.
the way that it looks right there looks like Ghostface in the middle right there, even though it's
Oh
not.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
No,
yeah. Kind of got a
yeah.
little thing
Yeah,
going there.
we used to have a totally different design for it. I don't, yeah, you can kind of see it in the poster back
Yeah.
there. And then we had the a different poster that had this image in it, and I decided to meld the two for this.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
really cool.
These shirts sold really well at Days of the Dead in Vegas.
I bet. I bet that was a crazy convention.
It really was. Yeah, it was my first horror convention, so it was wild.
Yeah, actually like some friends of mine were there too,
Mm.
like other than you guys, like you and Rachel and everybody else are my friends, but also other people I knew were also like Mary Kate was
Oh
promoting and
yeah, yeah,
a bunch of
man.
other
They had
people, the
a
Clown Motel.
Clown Motel 3. They had they had them and Desert Fiends. I think had the two best booths. Like
Crazy.
the way they set up the booths were just like crazy cool. Now Felissa said I had the best booth, but I don't agree.
I think she was a little
She's
like,
partial. She's
yeah,
partial. Yeah, yeah,
because if
yeah.
anything, because she's in the movie, so it kind of
Yeah,
it would be like, oh, she could be like, oh no, Desert Fiend says the best one,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then you'd be like, what? Come on, you're in this movie,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think
Their booths were right next to each other, and they were both just like incredibly well set up.
I think I forgot to ask you there. Maybe I didn't. But I mean, maybe I actually did. But how are you doing with the fires and stuff?
Oh well, I'm in Georgia, so
Oh,
pretty good.
pretty good.
No, so yeah, I moved out of LA uh in the middle of COVID and moved to Georgia,
Uh,
and so I've been here for the last like 5 years.
did you
Um,
still mark yourself safe?
I didn't, because I mean, on Facebook even, it has my city. I believe
Yeah.
is Georgia, but I'm not. So no, I did not. But
Well, my
I
friend of
do.
mine hasn't changed hers, and
Uh-huh.
so it did ask her if she was safe, and she said yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
she,
I thought about it just because I don't keep up with people really well, so I do have a lot of people hitting me up like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I've been living here for 5 years." But I have several friends that were affected. One of my very good friends, Anna Marie Pazmino, she starred in Edges of Darkness, and she was in Trap, a few movies I directed. Anyway, her and her husband, they completely lost everything, like their home. They had a nice place that they had built up. They aren't rich people, and they're
right.
just struggling. But anyway, it's a horrible thing.
I heard Vernon Wells too. He actually went on, his live or whatever or something like some kind of video and chatted about it, and I was
Yeah,
really
I
disappointed
mean,
to hear that. Like that's
uh,
sad.
Felissa Rose had a little bit of a scare. I think it was day before yesterday. A new fire broke out, and it was pretty close to her. I think they even had an evacuation order. They came right back, but they evacuated for a minute because I know I was supposed to hop on a call with her like day before yesterday, and then we ended up doing it today. But she's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a podcast that we were supposed to do, like two podcasts basically almost back to back with some people who were in LA and they had to cancel like or postpone it till later and whatnot. And I they were like, oh, thank you so much for we're doing, and I'm like, don't think me like
Yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah.
you're having to do it. Like if I were a dick about that, that would be so fucked up. Like if somebody were like, well, F you,
Yeah, yeah,
you
totally.
need to come here even if you're in a fire, during a fire.
Hmm.
Like that's no, like that's a very good reason not to be able to make a podcast, and
Yeah, yeah,
you know
100%.
but anyway, I had I was very happy to have you on here. I know you're going through a lot of stuff, and your YouTube channel is still kicking ass, dude. I
Yeah,
think
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've transitioned into mostly putting my documentaries up there. I haven't
mm,
been making a lot of filmmaking content, a little bit here and there, but the documentaries are doing really well there. Like it's been a nice like financial supplement to my income.
nice.
And I am putting together a filmmaking video of my experiences at Days of the Dead because it was my first horror convention. I wanted to do something kind of breaking down some do's and don'ts and some things I wish I would have done differently, some things I spent a little bit too much money on, vice versa, all that stuff.
So was
So
your
like
first?
it was my first as a filmmaker. Yes,
Wow.
I've been to a few, but I was never a big convention guy. Just I never collected signatures. I never really collected memorabilia, and I honestly just I didn't understand what they were. So
Uh-huh.
when I went to this one, and then you see what it actually is. Like the family atmosphere and the love, and I hate to sound all that like hippie about it, but like like the like all the other vendors or most of them anyway were very welcoming. Like all
Mm,
the celebrities there, most of them were very nice. It was like it was a really like cool and the bigger filmmakers, like the Terrifier guys, like they're so super cool.
mm,
Like and like I heard a lot of people say they were cool from all way back in the day, but now they've got to the point where like they don't necessarily have to be so cool, but they are. They're like very well. Like I talked to what's his name? Michael Levy. I talked to
Michael is such a nice guy.
yeah, dude. Like
Yeah.
he's
I've never met him in person, but like we've been friends on Facebook for a
yeah,
while,
yeah,
and he's
really.
just like it's so funny. He's just so like very nice through messaging, just a
Mhm.
really polite guy. I like
Yeah.
him a lot.
No, he's really cool. And the director and producer from Screamboat were there. Like Michael also produced it, but it
Yeah.
was kind of a different group of folks, and like they were super nice. The director was really nice, Steven, and his wife Amy. And that was a cool movie, by the way, Screamboat. But anyway,
I've
yeah,
heard about it. Yeah. That's
it was
the
fun.
was it the
Yeah, the
Steamboat Willie one.
Steamboat Willie. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's good. It had a surprising amount of heart. I'll say that.
No, it, and here's the thing with the indie industry. There's kind of Um, I can't say anything because I'm doing a Amityville thingy,
Hmm.
so I can't really like be like, well, you shouldn't do this stuff because, then I'd be a hypocrite. But I'm like, I get annoyed where there's trends, and it
Oh, like
happens at Hollywood too,
yeah,
but
yeah. You mean like the IP following,
and the
like
IP
the
following like
yeah, yeah, Winnie the
you
Pooh or
Winnie
yeah,
the Pooh, and then later it
yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, Screamboat and
Yes, yeah. I agree to an extent. I kind of try to take it on a one by one basis. And to be perfectly honest, had I not been invited to that screening and it had been there, it's probably not something that I would have sought out. I even told the
mm,
director as we were talking, and I was like, I'm really glad I watched this, but to be honest, I might not have just because it felt like just a part of the trend.
mm,
But like he told me he said that they had actually like been in development in that before like Winnie
it
the
became a
Pooh or
thing.
something. Yeah, before it
Yeah.
became a thing. But regardless, we really should look at things on a case by case basis and not an overall thing.
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
you know what I mean? Like Winnie the Pooh, I honestly haven't seen it, but I heard from people who I respect their opinion, and it just doesn't sound like my cup of tea.
I
No shade to those filmmakers. I mean, good for them,
I
but
love those guys though
yeah, yeah.
because like they're this British group
Hmm.
who have like their own studio. The dude started when he was like 24 or something, and
Yeah,
he all of a sudden just had this big thing that just
yeah.
like he
No,
did one movie after another, and now I mean he's got
yeah.
make almost 100 films under his belt. Like that's incredible,
Jeez, no, that's
you know?
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, like I said, I'm very happy for them, good for them. And honestly, like I was just, talking real nice about the Terrifier guys, and I love them personally. I honestly have not seen Terrifier, any of them. It's just like I know it's not my cup of tea. I am very happy for the filmmakers. I think it's a good thing for indie filmmaking. It's just not something I would seek out as a viewer.
Right. Well, okay, so this is my question on that. Because you say you it's not something those kind of things are something you wouldn't seek out as a viewer. Do you write what you would seek out as a viewer, or do you write what you wouldn't seek out as a viewer?
I more what I would, more what I would.
Okay, so like Craving. So what I noticed, I haven't seen The Hard Place yet, but I've seen
Hmm.
Craving. I loved Craving. People can see my review of it with Anna Zayden,
Yeah, yeah.
where we loved it. We had a
Yeah,
blast
no,
with that
I
movie.
really, you're really gonna like a hard place. But anyway, go
Okay.
ahead, go
Well,
ahead.
that's the point because when I saw the trailer, I'm like, this looks like a great would be a great double feature with Craving.
Oh,
Like, you
totally.
know.
And they're completely different tonally, but they're both monster movies. I just Hard Place is I'll say a hard place is a little more popcorn. Like it has a rough edge, but it's very it's well paced. It's
Hmm.
there's like something exciting happening, every, 5 or 10 minutes. It moves. It has a little bit more humor than Craving did. Not like, it's not like slapsticky, but there's definitely humor. And it just has more action and more monsters.
I did notice like Craving was very serious, more
Yes, yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah. Craving is a lot more straight-faced. Like
Yeah.
I would say, Hard Place might even be in moments a touch satirical. You know,
Yeah, like uh
it's a little more Sam Raimi.
okay.
I
Yeah.
think Craving was a little more Carpenter. This is a little more Raimi.
Well, I was also gonna say both kind of remind me a little of Tarantino. Like,
Yeah, yeah, and there's definitely a strong Tarantino influence.
with the criminals
Yes,
element.
I've talked about this a few times, but the reason that I really like criminal protagonists in movies is, they're, criminals, they work outside the law.
Hmm.
And then when they get into a situation like a horror movie situation, they can't depend on that law. You know what I mean? Like, so
Hmm.
they're completely like on their own, and
Their other element.
yeah, so I like that. Like people that, totally, don't like the law, can't depend on the law. So it's
Yeah,
cool.
and what I liked about what we both Anna and I talked about, I think, was that we liked like some of the backstory stuff too. Like you don't just give these characters like I just reviewed Feast, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
Feast was like basically a monster movie set in a bar or whatever. And
Yeah, yeah.
that's kind of Craving.
Yeah,
Craving's got that a little bit.
the setup is similar, yes.
Yeah. And so when in what I didn't like about uh Feast necessarily is you really don't get to know the characters at all. Like
Right.
they're kind of there, they talk to each other trying to figure this stuff out, but there's
Yeah.
no like backstory, there's no
Yeah.
there's a little bit I think, but not a lot, and yours have more like with Ashley's character and stuff like
Yeah.
that and that
Had a
I
little weight.
really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it made you sort of care about the characters a little bit more,
Yeah,
even if they're criminals,
totally. Totally. Yeah, yeah.
and whatnot.
They I tried to make them as relatable as possible.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
did a good job.
Thank you.
Um, so yeah, so did you like? Was there anything from Craving that you? Because I'm sure every movie that you do, you sort of learn one extra thing that you bring on to the next set.
For
Like,
sure.
what do you think? Like you learned from Craving that you brought back to a Hard Place?
Mm. Well, I feel like, Craving was probably the largest cast I'd worked with up to that point. So like I really it kind of really clicked with me on Craving, like how to work with like different actors coming, with different processes. and
Hmm.
being able to work with them together, so like I carried that over. And then, like creatively, so I like Craving quite a bit, but my one gripe on, Craving now in retrospect, I feel like there were a few pacing issues.
Right.
And although it's the kind of movie I like, I know some people, some comments and some of the criticism we got on the movie is that we build it as a monster movie and it's basically a monster movie in the last 15 minutes. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So like with A Hard Place, if I'm going to do another monster movie, like I really wanted to give a wall to wall monster movie. So like that's kind of what I took into A Hard Place.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I'd love to see that, like a full on, monster movie or whatever.
totally. And that's what it is. They're from the beginning, to the end, there's monsters.
Right, nice.
Yeah.
Well, usually, in monster movies, you don't really see the monster, much, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah. Yeah.
monsters
Yeah.
look bad and you can't, like, when you have a Bigfoot costume, the less you show of the Bigfoot costume,
Right, right.
the
And
more,
well, and
better.
there's, and you can make the Jaws argument where, like less is more and it's scarier to see less. Although, like like in A Hard Place, my goal was never really to scare. I mean, it's a
Uh-huh.
horror movie by definition, but I wouldn't say it's a scary horror movie. It's like it's a little more action packed. It's a little more like I said, it's more a Sam Raimi, like Evil Dead 2. Like Evil Dead 2 is not necessarily very scary. It's
But
just it's just
it's
fun.
the start of the really slapstick stuff, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
like they go way, at least it's not
yeah,
Army of Darkness where it's just like pure
yeah, yeah.
comedy,
Oh, totally, totally, totally. Yeah, yeah,
which is fine too, but
yeah.
it's,
Or if
that's
you look at something, like Peter Jackson stuff, like Dead Alive and that, it's not scary, but it's still a horror movie.
well, do you like because I gotta know this because like do you want everybody to be scared or do you just want to have fun?
I just want people to be entertained.
Right.
So I'm 50 now. I don't get scared in movies anymore. Like movies don't scare me. So I don't, I just look to tell a good story. And now if I can do some cool like little suspenseful moments, like edge of your seat stuff, I like that. But I'm not looking, I'm not a young like upstart,
Mm.
provocateur. I'm not looking to shock anymore. I'm not looking to, or be a nihilist. I'm just looking to tell like good stories that people are entertained by.
Right. I mean, there's some people that like I'll look for example like Robert Eggers. He's
Mm,
he's looking pretty much to either scare you or like make
disturb.
you
Yeah, yeah.
disturb,
Yeah,
do
yeah.
something
Totally. And it's
make
a totally valid approach and I like his work.
mm,
It's not how I approach it.
right.
Yeah.
And once again that's something like you when you watch a movie, you once watch something more like Evil Dead, than you would like a serious, you
Man,
know,
I wouldn't even say that. Like as a viewer, my tastes are a little more broad than my filmmaking tastes. So
okay.
like, like as a viewer, in the same day, I'm watching, romantic comedy to, like a hardcore horror movie, back to like some, like goofball action movie to some, independent drama.
Hmm.
So like my tastes are really broad. But as a filmmaker, like I'm not really looking to tell those like uber serious dark stories. I like to watch them, but I don't necessarily not looking to make them.
Well, okay. So would you are you ever interested in making something like a romantic comedy?
To be honest, not really. I've done a few comedies. Comedies is about the hardest thing you can do as a filmmaker. It's like the timing and sense of humor is so. And this is just my opinion. Some people will beat me up on this, but I think comedy is a younger man's game. Like I think it's like your finger needs to be on the pulse of what's happening. I think it's as far as filmmakers go. I think the best comedy filmmakers are younger for the most part.
It's
There
funny
are
because I kind of
exceptions.
agree because even like new school Woody Allen is not as good as old school Woody Allen, that kind of
No,
thing.
definitely not. You
You
know,
know?
I think there are very good older comedians and older comedy writers and good older comedy stand-ups that are good. It's just, and again, it's just a very like generalized opinion.
Yeah, no. I
Yeah.
mean, well, and some of those guys are on the pulse. Like, you looked at
Oh,
like George
totally.
Carlin all the way up
Yeah, yeah.
to his
Till he
death. Like,
died. Yeah,
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 till he
absolutely.
died, he was
Yep.
he knew what was in at the time or whatever, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But then you look at probably, like I don't know, some of the older comics, I'm trying to think of names, but like, you know, there was some that like hung out with like Frank Sinatra. They were funny, but they weren't like they didn't have the pulse, they were old time jokes,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff, I mean, it's fine. But that's, you do got to be a little hip because comedy is really for the younger audience most of the time,
Yeah.
and
I
everything.
I think so. I think so.
But and you like what was the thing like? Because were you always into horror?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was always kind of into everything, but like as a filmmaker, I've always kind of come back to horror. I mean, I've made all kinds of different things, but I really like horror movies. There's something about, putting characters like people in these extreme, very extreme circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
otherworldly, and like I feel like you really get to the like pure essence of who a person is when they're in those like otherworldly life or death stakes.
Mm-hmm.
So like I like that. And I do, I like, I like blood.
Right.
I like blood on screen and I like violence on screen. I don't like it in real life, but I like to see somebody's head bashed in on screen. I get a kick out of it. Maybe that makes me a sociopath. I don't know. But you know what I mean? I'm entertained by that.
Yeah, it's funny because yeah, when you tell like a person who's not into horror that, they probably look at you like, okay, that's a little weird,
Right.
but when you talk to a horror person knows and understands that kind of thing,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's what we like. We do like fun. I'm The funny thing is I'm not really that into gore
Okay.
myself,
Yeah, yeah.
or blood. I'm more I don't know, like I was into slashers, when I was a kid.
Hmm.
I still am. Um, but I'm like I don't other than Hatchet, I'm not really a big fan of like the over the top blood stuff,
Hmm.
Hatchet made it work because there was a lot of comedy and a lot of fun
Right,
to it,
right.
you
Like
know.
I like these days, like I like it one of two ways. Most of the time I like it when it's kind of over the top, like unrealistic, like geysers of gore. Like I like stuff like that, like Peter Jackson gore,
Hmm.
you know. But and then I like the like ultra realistic but not like exploitive, like if you have a really like somebody hits somebody in the head with a mallet and it's quick and it doesn't linger on it, but it's just like bam smash head's gone. Like I think that's like that moment of like like that's cool to me. But like again, and I haven't seen Terrifier, but I've heard of scenes, and it doesn't appeal to me to watch a woman sawed in half from like growing
That's
into the stern.
honestly, that was my favorite
Yeah,
part. I mean,
and a lot of people have said that too.
yeah.
But I don't know. It doesn't appeal to me. Although I don't know. Maybe I should watch
Well, I mean,
it.
it's funny because I interviewed Catherine Corcoran, who is that character who
Oh
gets like
wow.
cut out in
Okay.
half
Yeah, yeah.
before she did that. So I
Oh
was interviewing
wow.
her like whatever, like right before that came
Yeah, yeah.
out. So I was talking to her about other stuff and things, and 'cause she was working for Trauma, doing
Hmm.
like a Return to Nukem High and stuff like that. But afterwards, I was like. Dude, that was like the most epic like thing. Like when I met her at a convention in
Uh-huh.
person, and we chatted, like, got really excited to see each other. We were just like, oh my God, like, and how crazy is it that you like now all of a sudden like you're famous for this, but like
Yeah.
when I interviewed you, like this wasn't even a thing that we're thinking about talking about. And so she's really sweet. And she's got her own podcast now and everything.
Oh, that's
But
cool.
yeah, I got into Terrifier. It's not my cup of tea either normally. Like I don't
Yeah.
normally like what I would call sort of torture porn type stuff,
Right.
but I don't like torture stuff. But I like art. I like Art the
That's
Clown.
and I think I would enjoy like the art shtick, like that
Yeah.
does sound like appealing to me, but I don't know, it's just that I'm a little squeamish with certain types of gore now. It's weird. Like there's just something about what I've heard of that just kind of turned like I
I
just
know,
don't
I
know.
get it. They try each movie, they try to one up
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
last movie and do something different. Problem is they can't like honestly that one scene you're saying from the very beginning, the first
Yeah.
movie,
Was that the
that
first
is
one?
like the best. Like I don't think they've been able to do like a lot of really good gore, but
Right.
that was my favorite, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not just
But
because I know her, you
yeah,
know.
you're right, right. But again, like I said, the filmmakers personally are really cool. Like
Mhm.
like so happy for them, and it's made so much money. Like it's really good for independent horror. So I'm 100% pro Terrifier. You know.
Well, I want to hear your thoughts on this because I have a theory right now.
Sure.
2023 we had the strikes, and the
Mm-hmm.
strikes shut down a lot of productions, including horror, but like Hollywood horror,
Mm-hmm.
right? So Blumhouse and other companies weren't able to shoot until like everything was ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of screwed over 2024. We would have had a lot more probably, even though we had a lot, but a lot of it was independent
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the independent films were allowed into the theaters because the Hollywood films didn't have anything to
Yep.
show, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, like movies like Terrifier 3, where Terrifier 2 did get a, showing and
Yeah.
everything. And and it even got bigger releases as it went.
Mm-hmm.
Terrifier 3 got a bigger release from the start
Yeah.
because I think because of the strikes.
Mm.
And so I don't think we're gonna be that lucky this year, like with that stuff. I think the Hollywood had seen what happened when they're away, and everything. And I feel like they're gonna start telling the theaters to not to they're gonna try to give them more content
Mm.
to, movies to show rather than let them be able to pick the,
Yeah,
indies.
to be honest, I don't really know. It's such a weird thing, and there are so many theaters, and even with Hollywood kind of getting back on its feet, there's still like more theaters than there is content. But the problem, honestly, it's not like Hollywood versus us. It's the theaters. Like even independent theater chains there who claim to be pro independent cinema, they're very, very hesitant to put like new, unknown independent films into theaters. Like
Right.
they're really hesitant. Like I'm doing this roadshow thing now with the Hard Place, and the guy that's running it, Peter Hayaguchi, he's the guy who set up the theatrical run for Hundreds of Beavers, which had a super successful festival run. It was well known, and the theaters were still hesitant to book this movie, and it's made they finally agreed and it got in and it's making bank, but they were hesitant. If Peter wasn't as pushy as he is, it might not have made it. And then like with A Hard Place now, I still like, I mean, we're getting into theaters, but like it's hard, and almost every single one of them initially says no, like you
Mm-hmm.
have to keep pushing. And
Mm-hmm.
and then it's not like I'm a known property, but I have a movie, like it looks good, it has some like known actors, and it's still hard, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So I think that's a little more the issue. Like the theaters want the big polished Hollywood stuff, you know, and it's harder to get them to book smaller films.
It is.
Yeah,
And I kind of agree with you. Even like we have this theater called the Narrow and in Norfolk, Virginia. And it would be the place that shows that kind of stuff, like the art house kind
yeah,
of stuff or the stuff
totally.
like the indie stuff. And even them, I think they're very hesitant too about
Yeah.
like, unless you paid them,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
certain amount of
Yeah,
money,
yeah. Unless
you
you're
know,
paying to rent the theater out, then it's pretty
right.
easy. But if you're trying to do like business and trying to split rev, it's very difficult, man. But also you got to look at it from their perspective. And I hate to say this, but most independent filmmakers aren't good at the business. They're not good at putting butts in seats. They might have a good movie, but they don't know how to fill that theater. And the theater needs to sell a certain amount of tickets. They need to get people in to buy their concessions. So like if you have a filmmaker that just like can't bring people in, you know I think that's the hesitation, is that they occasionally they do take chances, and then they get bit in the butt. They get bit in the butt. I mean, now like the theater that took a chance on us, and like I said, he was super hesitant. He's like, the last three that came in here, we didn't make anything. They had like 15 people show up, and so but then we come in and we pack the theater, and he's like, oh yeah, this is great now. And now I can go back to that theater whenever I want, or I can extend. And I think that will repeat itself with us. But man, it's hard. Like
Yes.
I was almost positive we were gonna have a full slate in May, and the major one that was kicking it off pushed us to March. So it's like I have almost 3 weeks now where I don't have a screening, where I was supposed to be having one almost every week. It'll be bigger in March, but right now it's like, man, and it's all because of that hesitation. So a bigger, more studio level projects came along. They're like, hey, we got to fill it with this, or otherwise we're gonna lose it. So they push the little guy. And that's just how it works.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the little guy's always gonna get
Yeah.
the shaft because they can't. And and see, that's the tough thing. So Hollywood, could be doing a lot better, in my opinion, with stuff,
Mm.
or whatever. Like I mean this year we had, or last year we had what's Deadpool and Wolverine was the one that made like bank money,
Yeah, a lot of money. Well, I think we're going to see a ton of Hollywood horror in the next couple of years, because especially with what do you call it? Shit, it just slipped my mind. I really love the movie. Oh, The Substance. Like with that getting the Oscar nominations,
Mm.
like watch. Like there's going to be a ton of
That's what I was
those.
kind of thinking
You
too,
know,
is like
and the success of Terrifier. They won't necessarily all be good, but Hollywood's gonna try to follow those trends. I mean, they're looking at like Terrifier kicked like almost every major studio like horror movie's butt this year.
well,
And
and yeah, and you know what? And last year, I mean, we had The Substance, we had Long Legs, we
yeah, Long Legs,
had
that was really good.
yeah, we had Nosferatu, we had all these amazing horror
Yeah,
films that were uh somewhat studio, like they were,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
um
they're basically studio film, and
yeah,
with The Substance being Oscar nominated, it's going to give the genre a little more legitimacy for at least a couple of years.
but
You
they're
know.
gonna want to try to get an Oscar. So I think it's going to end up, and this is why I think the Oscars should have a revamp or something, that they should adapt to what's what's hot now or whatever, because
Mm,
they still don't like to call anything a horror.
yeah.
You know, they're snobby still. And the funny thing is, a lot of those people that were snobby are gone. Like the people that were, kind of doing that. We've got young people running, I think, unless we don't, for the
Right,
academy, they
right.
should have more young people saying, "Look, let's make a best horror category,
Mm.
or something," because sometimes, Jaws, I don't even know what that was. That wasn't what was that under, like best picture or something? Like there wasn't
Yeah, yeah. Was
any.
it nominated? I don't even
I
know.
think so, at least for
Huh.
score. I think
Yeah,
it got
yeah, I couldn't tell you. It's been
um
I don't
uh,
really follow.
I know Silence of the Lambs was
Yeah,
nominated, and
Silence of the Lambs
but they
won.
didn't call that a horror. They called it like a thriller or
Yeah,
mystery
yeah.
or whatever, which it is, but let's a horror film,
Right.
you know? Like it was in my horror section at my video store. Like there's no way, it wasn't in my thriller section, I don't
Right.
think. I think I remember it being in a horror because I love that. I love that. And I love that they're able to get into the, academy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think more they're gonna try to get these movies more into the academy then. And that means they're gonna have to change horror a little bit,
Mm.
Like they're gonna have to put the horror in there, but like make it a love story or make it, something that the academy will be, oh man, this is what a great performance by, you know, some
Right.
some big actor.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Demi Moore winning like the Golden Globes and now being nominated?
I think it's great. I really liked the movie. I thought she was awesome in it. It's funny if somebody who's had such a long career like this is what she finally wins for.
Hmm.
I thought it was really good, and I'm like super happy for her.
And I bet she wasn't expecting that.
I don't
You
think so.
know,
I don't think anybody was. I mean, I love the movie, but I was a little surprised with the Oscar
yeah.
nom. Like the Golden Globes, I could kind of see like it's a little looser, but I was really surprised that it got an Oscar nomination. Like it's a wild
Once it
movie.
got Golden Globe, for some reason my head said she's gonna be nominated for an Oscar.
Mm,
There's no way. But they're only allowed 10, like 10 spots and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
mean that was
and it
pretty
was a
good.
strong year for movies, So
Yeah.
it's like, especially those types, like Oscar-y movies. Like there were a
Mhm.
lot of good ones. So I was surprised, but I'm really glad I liked it.
It was funny because out of all I mean, I don't know. I like stuff like I was still loving stuff like Ghostbusters, or
Mm,
whatever. Things like that. I adore that, but I'm not looking forward necessarily to like Karate Kid,
mm,
Like I mean I am and I'm not. I think it's like why are we still doing this? And I think that was
yeah,
for rights issues, to keep the
yeah.
rights going. But
Yeah. To be honest, I have like almost zero interest in the movie. Like I'll finish the series just because I've watched it all. So I'm a completist, so I'm gonna finish it. I've lost interest for sure.
oh, you've lost interest from this season or from before
I
this season?
before like I've so I it, this is just my opinion. I think the first two seasons were excellent, and
Hmm.
then I think it was kind of like third was okay, and then like everything after that I think was it just got worse. I
It's
personally,
Netflix,
yeah, I mean, like I think the show when it concentrates on the kids is good. When it concentrates on the legacy stuff, it gets really silly. Like the Terry Silver season, like, and I liked Terry Silver. I thought he was cool, but like just bringing everybody back and having these guys who are obviously not able to fight anymore, like doing these fights, like put the kids back in. The kids stuff was like those big fights in season one and two, like those were awesome. Like the high school thing,
hmm
they just never had anything like that again. Like no, those two seasons topped for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm still watching. I'm still enjoying. I think it comes out soon. Like it's
yeah,
going to be
yeah.
in February that
I
it
mean, don't get
finishes.
me wrong. I am watching it. Like I when the first half of the season came out. I mean, I probably watched it that weekend, and
Right.
I'll probably watch the end right away too. But I'm just not as into it as I was. I just think it was better made in the first couple seasons, and I just think
Yeah,
it got less as it went on.
you're kind of like the way I felt about Supernatural. Like it was great for the first 5 seasons.
Five,
Then after a
yeah.
while, it just kind of like, okay, are we just keeping this thing on like life support? Like
Yeah, totally.
why?
Like the way I feel, and I honestly, I probably haven't seen a ton of it between 5 and whatever 15 because
I
I just
think it's
watched
15, yeah, or 16,
I
something
watched
like
it
that.
sporadically after that. But those first five were excellent, and then I kind of lost interest in six, and I think pretty much every season had at least one really good episode. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like even in those last like I forget what season it was where they did the Scooby Doo episode, but I thought that was awesome. But I honestly couldn't tell you the overall like story arc past season 6.
Yeah. Uh, well, I've been watching it and stuff. I watch the Scooby Doo one, and
Hmm.
I'll watch, occasion. But I mostly watch the first five. Like
Yeah.
I don't go back and unless there's something I might have. I didn't ever watch the Scooby Doo one,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I was like, oh crap, is there a lot of like episodes? I think there's a lot of episodes I never watched.
There's a lot. I thought about doing a rewatch of it, and I think I even started one, and then I liked the first five, but even in the first five, if you've already seen it, there's some stuff that gets a little dry. So I think I tapped out around season two.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think yeah. And so that's so funny. So have you ever thought about writing your own TV show?
I mean, I've never had an idea really that would translate well into like a long-term TV show. I really like TV. Like I like how they tell stories over, like years. Like I like that stuff. But like the right idea, maybe, but I've just never I haven't had anything. And this is just my opinion. There are some independent filmmakers that have had great luck with, independent series movie shows, but for the most part, I think it's kind of an uphill battle for unless you're doing a studio level thing to mount any kind of a series independently.
I agree. And you know, eh, so yeah, so there's some shows that were independent and made with like, but usually TV is you work your way up in TV.
Yeah,
So,
totally. I mean,
you don't
m-
start out as a showrunner,
yeah,
you know?
I've always been kind of as far as a filmmaker, I'm kind of pragmatic in my goals and my tastes. So like I'm always looking to do things that I feel are feasible for me to do right now or like a half a step from now. So like TV series just seems like something that's it's a little bit out of the reach of where I am. So I don't really think about it much.
Well, I mean, so are you ever interested in doing anything studio wise if you could?
Not really. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. If the opportunity was presented to me, I would. I would totally do it. I would jump. I would jump on, a larger budget, $20 million thing in a minute. But I don't want it enough to like actively pursue it anymore. Like right now, like I am honestly and truly happy making movies at the level I am, making the money I'm making. Don't get me wrong, I'd like a little bit more. Like with
Right.
the new movie I'm doing, it's about double to triple the budget of A Hard Place.
Oh
And
wow.
I'm very happy with like that, and looking back at A Hard Place, I keep thinking like, how the hell did I pull this off? But so I'd like a little bit more money, but I don't need millions. And and I like the lack of like supervision and control. I mean, I can pretty much do whatever the heck I want, you
Right.
know. Like I'm not beholden to anyone, like and I work completely for myself. I don't have to take notes from people if I don't want to. So I like that. So I personally think I will probably finish my career making like smaller movies.
Well, that's good. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. And I'm
that's
and I'm totally fine with that.
well, I mean, yeah, I'm sure there was one part of you at one point that was like you wanted to be a studio
Oh,
director.
totally, totally. I mean, when I started all the way up till I'd say maybe 5 years ago was where the switch kind of flipped. But like up to that point, I always, I really wanted to be like Quentin Tarantino. Like that was my like template, Like I really like that. That was what I was like striving for. And then one day you realize that like you're not that. Not better or worse, but just different. I'm
Well,
not that, and I never will be,
I mean,
so
Tarantino
that's
has
fine.
this. What? Go ahead.
No, no, that was it.
Well, I was gonna say Tarantino had not just a style because he does. He has a
Hmm.
very specific dialogue style and whatnot. But he also nobody really knows this. Like nobody talks about this. But he was a really good networker.
Oh
you know.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And
And personality. Yeah.
yeah, personality, he knows movies really well. Like
Yep.
I really hope I think he has a podcast, but I'd like him to do another podcast that's like something a little bit different because he's got specific genres he does on his
Yeah,
podcast.
yeah.
But I love listening to him talk. I kind of wish he did
Yeah,
more
me too.
commentary.
Hmm.
But he is one of those guys that he was good at networking because uh I don't know if you know this or not. I'm sure you do because you seem to be a pretty good cinephile who knows a lot about movies, or
Hmm.
whatever. But he like I watched Vigilante, directed by William Lustig,
Mm, yeah.
and he was a big fan of William Lustig, and then he
Right.
became friends with William Lustig. And then he met Scott Spiegel because
Yep.
he was like, oh my God, Intruder! I loved Intruder. Then
Yeah,
he
yeah, yeah.
met then he met God, I'm blanking on his name. Oh my God, his producer.
Oh,
Um
fuck no, I
yeah,
just lost his name.
exactly. It's
Lawrence
not like
Bender. Lawrence
yeah, Lawrence
Bender.
Bender, thank you.
Yeah.
And he met Lawrence Bender through Scott Spiegel because he produced Intruder. And
Yeah.
then that became his like,
Yeah.
buddy for a while, like his producing partner, kind of like
Hmm.
Kevin Smith at Scott Mosier.
Yeah.
And that to me was that's how you do it.
Hmm.
Because like if he didn't have Lawrence Bender wouldn't have gotten in touch with Harvey Keitel
Yeah.
or whatever, and
Yeah, yeah.
Reservoir Dogs wouldn't have happened.
Right.
But it's because he went out and he was like partying with William Lustig,
Yeah,
you know?
totally.
Um, and I think that's what made him good and made him be able to get into the studios. But
Mm.
if he didn't have a good script
Yeah,
that was well written and that,
it
I
wouldn't have
mean,
mattered. Yeah, no,
yeah, it wouldn't
I
have
know what you're
mattered.
saying. There's a lot of people that are good at networking, but they can talk the talk but can't walk the walk. And I think I've had almost an opposite like career. I was always really bad at networking, and I've gotten better at it over the years. I really think after all these years, I feel like I've just kind of started coming into my own as far as that goes. And like I do think we'll see some growth in the level of the movies I'm making between, now and, the next few years. I mean, like I said, I mean, my next one's about, triple what my last one was,
So
so
does that
it's
mean more
like,
characters or just a
yeah, more characters, more monsters. Well, yeah, more types of monsters, I'll say.
oh,
Yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
that's really cool because
Yeah.
and that's great that you have like these monster movies you do,
Yeah,
where
yeah, it
each
was
one.
like when I started craving, my goal, because like I'm gonna dip back into horror, so I wanted to do three movies, pretty much one a year, and monster movies, just like an unofficial trilogy. They're
Mhm.
not directly connected, but they're all monster movies, and they would all be each one would be slightly bigger than the last. And so far that's the way it's worked. I mean, Hard Place was almost double the size of Craving, and then this one will be much, like much
Wow.
larger. Yeah,
Well, that's good.
yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited for the new one and for the Hard Place release. Because like the doing the theatrical, and I'm going to pitch drive-ins next week, and then our streaming release will be in May now. So like which will be right around the time I'm funding for the new movie. So.
Wow. So, are you doing another Indiegogo or do you have like investors this
It'll
time?
be it'll be a little of both. So like I do have some equity into it already, more than I had in a hard place, and then I will do an Indiegogo on top of it.
I personally don't do Indiegogos anymore just because uh they just don't they haven't it's work and I'm
It
not
is
very
work.
good at it. I'm
It
not
is
very
work.
good at it and I realize that. And so I would get like whatever we wouldn't make our budget and
Yeah.
stuff and
Yeah.
and then I feel like an asshole because,
Yeah.
I have this
Yeah,
money
no.
and I'm putting it into the film and then I'm not able to do anything with it, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I it's just one of the things. I think I gained a confidence doing it from doing my YouTube channel. And
Mhm.
then when Craving happened, I had no idea that we were going to raise as much as we did on Craving. I expected, 10 or 20,000 maybe. like, and that was like maybe. I didn't think I was going to raise anything. And then, like, money just kept coming in. And then, I had kind of an epiphany in the middle of that. I was like, because all these years I would say, oh, I'm not good at social media. I'm not good at networking. And all of a sudden, I just one day I woke up and realized, oh, wait, I am pretty good at this,
Yeah.
and you know, like I like it. A lot of filmmakers hate marketing, like they hate
I
it.
love marketing too.
Yeah, but I and at its heart, that's what crowdfunding is. It's like and I just it's a specific type, but I don't know. I enjoy it. Like it's tough, and especially that first weekend is like it's like killer. It's almost 24/7 for the first 3 days, but after that, man, it's pretty good.
Well,
Like
I
and
mean,
I've found it's like I've gotten more fan interaction and more like networking opportunities from doing crowdfunding than I
mhm.
did in almost 20 years of making movies. So like it's for me it's like opened up a whole world. I'm not saying I'll do it forever. Like I don't know that I'll crowdfund another movie after the next one, but who knows. Like I don't want to end up like and again, no shade, but I don't want to end up like the Mahals and like crowdfunding my 20th movie. You know,
Yeah. Well, I mean, and yeah, no shade to them. That's what they're really good at, and
yeah,
they're
no, and
able to raise the money. But they have like a core group of people who constantly help them
yeah, no, yeah,
and
and
stuff.
they
So,
and they're really good at it, and they create like this really fun like almost circus like environment. Like I went to the premiere of Arena Wars, which I like the movie, but like the premiere, like they did it up, man. They had a party bus, like it was a nice screen, like like it was just this, and you could tell from talking to the other cast members and crew members, like people liked being on that set. They like they create a really like fun thing for their contributors. So that's why they continue to be successful with it. I don't know that I would have the bandwidth to do it as long as they've done it.
well, and it seems like they they're kind of like I kind of view the Mahals as like TV.
Mm,
When they shoot their stuff because like, I listened to like Kevin Smith once talk about how he did Supergirl and all the stuff up in Canada,
mm-hmm.
and he said that he really wasn't needed to direct, you know.
Right,
He
right,
just kind
right,
of came in and he might say a few things, but really like he even left for a while and they were making it without him,
right.
so like
Yes,
he
yes.
wasn't he wasn't much needed because they worked together for so long, like Michael Sue
Yeah,
and a
yeah,
bunch of these other filmmakers who work with the Mahals. They constantly, I mean, they're always working with them, so they know what they want. They know what they're going to shoot. The
yeah,
Mahals
yeah.
probably have a lot of say in a lot of stuff of what they want to do, and so it's almost like working on TV. So
Mm.
which is different than a film like your film where you're the boss, you're the showrunner, you're the one in charge, you're the one
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
everything.
yeah,
And
yeah. It's a
there's
different for sure.
yeah, and it's wonderful. Like I think it's great to have all these different things. My only problem with Indiegogo and whatnot and crowdfunding
Mm.
is there's just a lot of negative backlash a lot of times. I mean, you have to sort of try to rise above it, but there's sometimes sabotage, like I was trying to raise money for one project and somebody directed me toward people just bad mouthing and telling people not to check out my Indiegogo and
Mm.
stuff like that and whatnot. And I'm just like, I mean, you can't do anything about it sometimes, but it doesn't help your project and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, this is just this thing I've been noticing recently with a lot of filmmakers, especially indie filmmakers. A lot of people are like way too focused on what other people are saying or doing or thinking. I like I'd like to say that I don't have any drama on my stuff or in my campaigns, but there might well be. I'm just not aware of it or I don't acknowledge it. Like so for me, like I when I see this, I think it stalls out a lot of filmmakers because they worry so much about the perception. You know, like
Hmm.
especially with crowdfunding, like some people say, "Oh, it's like begging for money or whatever." You know, it's not. You know, if it's like that for you, great, that's fine. But if it's not for you, don't let someone else's opinion of it like stop you from doing your thing. You know?
Okay, that's a good point, you
Yeah,
know.
so I am sure I have haters out there, but I don't acknowledge them. I don't give them air. When I get a like a silly comment, you know, I post a crowdfunding thing and somebody makes some, you know, silly trolly comment, I either unfollow or I hide them or I block them, and I just don't deal with it, you know. Like
That's
I
actually a good point.
there's a filmmaker who I will not name who's, you know, done a few campaigns in the last few years and has had constant drama on sets, you know, and always is pointing at, you know, like the other people. It's this person's fault. This person did this to me. This person did that to me, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, the common denominator on these 4 or 5 different sets is you. You
Mm,
know, I'm not saying you caused it, but like, you know what I mean? Like if you're a filmmaker and you have like some major kind of drama on several sets, like you need to be a little self-reflective. Like look back, like, okay, maybe like I didn't initiate this conflict, but what is it about my personality or what is it about the way I hire people that attracts this? You know, like if you constantly have problems with actors, like actors not showing up or whatever, like
hmm.
you need to look at the type of people you're hiring. You know, like yeah, I'm not saying that it's like directly your fault. You know, I'm not victim blaming here, but you know, like if you constantly have the same problems, you got to look
No,
inward. You know,
no, definitely.
yeah.
And you know, well, I mean, and a lot of times there's going to be bad blood in the indie film industry and stuff too. Like there's going to be people that, you know, maybe things didn't go as well as, you know,
Mm,
planned and they didn't get their way and they're not going to be happy and whatnot. And you know, I try to stay out of drama. That's why like people have to bring me into that stuff and say, "Hey, you know, these people are saying whatever," and then I just, you know, I'm just tired of it, you know, because sometimes it's just annoying. But
yeah.
in the same sense, was that going to stop my passion for making movies? No, it's just. I mean, I never really had a passion for Indiegogo
Right.
myself
Yeah, no,
personally.
totally,
Like,
totally. And crowdfunding is just it's a very specific type of fundraising, and some people, you know, will, you know, take to it and some will not, and some just have like a legitimate problem with it, and they're like there's no right or wrong in it, you know.
hmm. Well, yeah, and you kind of said that like I had a friend, I'm not going to name names as well, but a friend, you know, who dealt with the thing where she tried saying something to, you know, sending somebody a uh you know, just a link to a like you know how you send out Facebook like like group requests or
Oh yeah.
you know, page requests.
Right.
Um the person attacked her for whatever reason. And it was BS and it was mean and it was
Hmm.
very and all they did, all they could, I mean, all they had to do was say no thank you or, you know, like or
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
whatever. You know, you
Yeah.
don't have to like make a big deal out of anything. And people do that because they think that because they're inviting them to a group or something that they're now asking for money and people are or wanting to be
Right.
cast, you know, cast in the film, like our buddy Rudy, who's always like, you
Rudy.
know, yes, I love Rudy. He's my boy.
Yeah.
But I love him and
I
I'll
was yeah.
always put him in all my stuff, you know. And
I don't have it here, but we made some because we're selling a bunch of merch at the convention, so we have all these beer cozies, and Christina that's designing all this stuff, she made all these like not a bunch, but like 5 or 6 of these little Rudy tea cozies. So it's like
nice.
his face on it, and it's like a hard place, and it's like Rudy, like
Dude,
we're
I'm
yeah.
so jealous of him. Like last year and this year, he's at fucking Sundance.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like,
I just saw a couple of pictures online.
I
Yeah,
know I did too today, and
yeah.
I was like, good, Rudy,
You
you know,
know,
you're everywhere. you know?
We had a lot of like really big like crowd moments, in a hard place at the premiere. But at the cast and crew screening, like one of the biggest applause moments was like Rudy's little scene. Like he came on screen and everybody was like Rudy. It was like
Like
he was
everybody
so
knows who he is.
it
He's
was
a
so
celebrity, man,
he
you know?
is, man. He's like the indie Lon Chaney Jr.
And
It's
he
funny,
really
man.
is.
Yeah. No, he's
And
great, man. He's a really nice dude.
He is, and he's very patient and very sweet, and
Yeah, yeah.
I can't wait because we got Scary Story Slumber Party Volume 2 coming out
Oh,
later
cool.
this year, and he does his face is in it. You know, he
Hmm.
had paid for his face to be in it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think one of the characters is named Rudy Ledbetter, of
That's funny.
course, you
That's
know.
funny.
So we want to do a movie where like all the Rudies, like all the different Rudies cross over, like a multiverse of Rudies, you
Right.
know
Yeah.
and stuff at some point. That'd be to me that would be fun, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, but only really for the indie film industry. Like nobody else would understand
Yeah, no,
that.
no, totally, totally. It's a real, I get a kick out of it. And he's legitimately, he did a remote role in Hard Place, and like he's legitimately funny in it. Like I mean, it's a funny little sequence, but like it was just like perfect, like satirical casting. Like he's playing a teenager, and it's really funny.
Well, I love that. I want to get back to Days of the Dead.
Sure, sure.
Is you said, the Desert Fiends and the Clown Motel people and
Yeah,
you guys are all like right by each other. I mean, to me
pretty
that's
close. Yeah,
yeah, that's awesome. Like
yeah.
that's an awesome like I'm sure that was fun for people to walk by and see all that. So
Oh,
awesome.
totally. Yeah, and we got really good placement. Like our table was like right up at the front. Like it was the first thing you see when you walk in and the last thing you see when you leave. It was like
Mm.
right there. So like we got a lot of good visibility. Like our we were giving out little postcards that had QR codes for our trailer, and we got something like 15,000 views that weekend on
Oh
our
wow.
trailer. Like so we got a lot of eyeballs. I didn't quite sell the amount of merch that I wanted to, but I kind of learned like, what to put out, what not to. But I think I'll do better in Atlanta.
Well, you said it was your first,
It was, and I'm
it,
not beating myself up. I just, but it was a learning experience.
well, I mean, and then the ones you don't sell, you can sell
Oh,
Atlanta,
totally. Yeah, I still have it.
everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well,
So I mean,
my big piece of advice for anybody doing merch at a con or even at your premieres, if you're selling T-shirts, buy extra larger sizes. Like I bought like an even amount, like smalls, medium, large, extra large, double XL. I had the same numbers. We sold out of double XLs and XLs like after the second screening. So like when I got to Days of the Dead, I had almost no like larger sizes and I didn't sell nearly as many t-shirts.
there you go. Well, I
Horror fans tend to be a little bigger.
they do, and that it's funny because yeah, I'm even like I didn't realize. I mean, I've gained, I guess, a little bit of weight,
Mm,
and so I used to be a medium. And when I turned 40, that wasn't the case anymore and everything.
yeah.
I'm 43 now, but
Hmm.
like all of a sudden I'm a large and I'm like, oh, and then I
Yeah.
hope I don't ever become an extra large because like I don't think I'm only 5'3", so I don't think an extra large would be great, for me,
Right.
as far as health wise. So I just
Well, I bought a bunch of extra larges for the next one, so if you do get up to there, I'll have you covered.
Okay, good, good. If I come down to Atlanta, I do. I've actually so we met. A lot of people
Yeah,
might not know
LA.
this. We met in LA. I guess right before you moved to Georgia.
That would have been a few years before. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
because
I think that was like 2000. It was after campus, right?
so it was
Or
2019. Because
oh,
it was
wow. Yeah, I
literally
was thinking it was a little bit before that, but yeah,
no,
you're right.
no.
Yeah, so it was about a year before I moved then. Yeah,
Yeah, because
dang.
we met there. You were the first two people in California that I
Yeah,
met.
me and
Met up
Rachel.
with
Yeah,
you and
it's
Rachel.
funny.
Yeah.
I remember specifically the like meeting with you and having coffee, but in my head I was thinking it was like
Yeah. Well, I think it's because I
way
got
before.
I got Death Day signed, aka the campus
Oh, yeah.
signed and
Okay.
everything.
Yeah,
So
that had to be. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
Dang.
that was after it got renamed. Death
Yeah.
Day to
Oh
go and
yeah,
to
yeah,
go
yeah.
inside with Happy Death
Yeah,
Day,
Jesus.
which
Yeah.
was I think
I,
personally
d- I
Campus
don't,
is a better
yeah,
title,
and
but
honestly don't think they sold any more copies because of it either. And then, when I got the rights back, I changed it right back to the campus.
good.
Yeah.
Good. I like it better. I mean it makes it sound a little like, and plus technically they should have kept it as the campus because campus starts with a C and
Yeah,
they always
totally.
want to go in alphabetically want to go
Alphabetical.
earlier in the alphabet.
Right.
So it'd be picked up.
Yeah.
But anyway, the campus is just a better title,
It was. It was. I think
Yeah.
so too. I think so
But
too.
I think I understand
Yeah, I
their
get it. I get it. And honestly, I could have fought it and I didn't. I was like, oh, it was like if, you guys know the market better than me if you think it's going to sell more titles cuz on campus I was into investors for quite a bit of money and I was like, let's just get the money back. Like I had almost no artistic integrity after that movie came out. It was like just sell it, make some money back.
make some money back and then
Yeah, yeah.
you can
Yeah,
make the next movie you can have some artistic and credibility or
totally.
whatever.
Or if it's, or if it's mine, like for example, like on a hard place and craving, there's some equity into them, but not enough that it's a big worry. So like
Right.
since they were crowdfunded, like I'm a little more, able to take some risks, and do some stuff that maybe I wouldn't have done if I was trying to play it safer.
How much of your own money do you put in? Do you put any of your own money or do you just
Yeah,
have
yeah,
investors?
yeah. They say to never put your own money in, but yeah, I do. So on Craving, I don't know. Like maybe between $10,000 and $15,000 on Craving. On this one, I'm probably around by the time all's said and done, because I'm basically out of pocket on all the marketing at this point. It'll be probably around 25,000, 26 maybe, something like that.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing with horror films. Horror films have a better chance of making their money back as opposed to like maybe a comedy or
Mm.
something because comedies you need a big name
Uh-huh.
star in it. Otherwise, people are gonna be like, why am I gonna watch a comedy with no names, or whatever, right? Like,
Mm.
that doesn't make any sense to me. But was it but a horror film can have no names whatsoever, like Evil Dead at that time had Bruce Campbell, but Bruce Campbell was a nobody, at the time of the original Evil Dead. And I mean, it made enough where they got to make more movies and stuff.
Right.
Apparently, from what I understood, it didn't make its money back for like years,
Mm.
and everything. Like it didn't break even till years. And I don't even know if it ever really fully made a profit, which, but if you look at you look at Terrifier 3, and now you can use that as a way to get investors because you can
Mm.
tell them, you know, uh, Terrifier 3
Right.
cost $2 million and made over $50 million.
Well, I mean, I think it's a little more complicated. Like, so for example, I personally think it would be irresponsible, for a filmmaker to go to an investor and use something like Terrifier as an example. Because, the Terrifier and I'm not saying they didn't deserve it. They worked really hard. They deserve it every bit as much as anyone else.
Hmm.
But it's lightning in a bottle. Like Terrifier is not something that repeats itself very often. Like when was the last like Terrifier we had? Probably Paranormal Activity. It's like
Maybe, yeah. Well,
maybe something in there. But what I'm saying is
yeah.
it's lightning and it doesn't happen. It's like Terrifier is not the rule; they're the exception.
Hmm.
The rule is independent movies don't make very much. So it's
Right.
like like in when you're going to investors, like when I go to investors and I'm very like straight up. I'm like, "Look, you're going to put this money into you. I've done this many movies. I can say with, 85-90% certainty you're at least going to make your money back.
Hmm.
Like with me, it's a pretty good bet. But do not put this money in if you can't lose it because it
Right.
is a gamble and movies do lose. And even me, I have a really good track record, but I've had movies that lost. Campus was a major loser. Like, we had maybe 75K into that movie total, and it still hasn't made maybe $10,000. Like it made nothing, you know. Uh,
How do you handle like the investors? Like if it didn't make the money, do they still contact you and say, hey,
Where's
am I
my
gonna?
money?
Yeah.
Some, and we had about 20 on that, and there were two or three that were kind of difficult. And over the years, because I basically we paid off the investors that on that movie on a first in, first out basis. So luckily, the couple of people that were difficult were like early in.
Hmm.
So, I was, I like, they either got paid out, from the little bit of movie money the movie made, or I went into my pocket because I was tired of being harassed and, paid them off,
Wow.
but yeah, I mean, and it's a,
The
it's tough.
gamble.
It's a gamble.
Yeah.
So, even on, like Craving, so we crowdfunded, I think it was 80,000, like total 80, 85. And then there was another, I think 15 or 20 in equity, but like for a movie of that size, like 20,000 is like you're pretty safely going to make that money,
Hmm.
and Craving made, well over that in the first year. So, it was financially successful technically. However, if Craving would have been traditionally funded, it would be probably still in the red, you know and a hard place where I think it will make past the budget even with the crowdfunding. It's still a risk. I'd say maybe 50-50. It'll definitely make back its equity. Well, I say definitely, it'll most likely make back its equity, but well, it's already made back half of its equity. So we're looking pretty good there.
Well,
But it's still a risk. And and I wouldn't tell, I tell every investor, if you're investing in a couple $100,000 movie, nobody's getting rich.
right.
Like you might make your money back, we might make another movie, you might make a little money on top of this. It's not going to be life changing or, fuck you money.
Yeah. Well,
Most likely.
and that's a good point because you said you had like 20 people, like if 20 people put in $5,000,
Yeah.
you got a pretty good amount of money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
$5,000 to a lot of to some people is
Is a
not a
lot of
lot of
money.
money,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that's not a risk,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
stuff. So,
Yeah, and you can write it off, like, we had one of the investors in campus, like the biggest one, like he put in, I think it was 20 or 25, something
oh
like that.
wow.
And he was the easiest person of the bunch. Like when money didn't come in, he was like, I wrote it off, no big deal. It's the cats that put in like 1,000, or like 2,000, that were the difficult ones. The same thing in
Yeah, because
crowdfunding,
then
dude. Like
yeah,
in
it's
crowdfunding, you'll have somebody pay $5,000 for something, and they will be happy and easy and happy with what they get. Then you'll have somebody come in, pay $40 for a voice in a movie role or something, and then they'll be mad because they don't hear their voice loud enough or something like that. Like I had one woman on Craving, like, just like rip me a new asshole because she couldn't clearly make out her scream or something like that, and I think she had literally paid like $35 for it. And I was just like, I didn't even like really respond to the tirade. I was just like, just send me your PayPal and I'll refund you. And I didn't answer the questions, I didn't respond. I just gave her money back, and then I don't have anything else to do with them. but that
nah.
but that's like one out of, we had 500 contributors on Craving, and that was like the one person that was like, salty. On a hard place so far, I haven't had any.
Well, and that's going to be the fun thing about when we get Scary Story Volume 2 out, is like people have been waiting for one of the projects that
Mm,
was originally supposed to be a series and then it became a feature and now it's become a short. So,
right.
something that had to happen. And it's called Echo Lake Massacre. Originally it was just called Echo Lake. But we're really excited to finally get that going. But there's a lot of problems with the movie. That's why, like, there was issue. That's why it's taken so long. Is because
Right.
there's a lot of technical issues and things that some that can't be fixed, definitely can't do reshoots 10 years later, or whatever 10 years later, like it's just
Hmm.
not going to happen. So what we're going to have to do is just edit things and work around stuff and cut things down to what looks good,
Right.
because I would rather have something that looks good than like really crappy stuff, to put out,
Yeah, yeah.
just to, whatever. Like, and a lot of that other stuff we could put on if we cut things out, there's things called deleted scenes, and we can leave them in there if we have
Hmm.
to.
Yeah.
But I would rather the movie look good and be out and everybody get to see it, rather than just never do anything with it ever again and have to pay everybody back,
Right.
or
Yeah.
whatever, when I could just get it finished and everything. Like it took a while, but better late than never, right? I guess,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so anyway, that's the thing. Like when it comes to filmmaking and doing all that stuff, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of making sure something looks good, because I'm sure there are days like you said, there's that one person who complained about the sound of it, but
Right.
like you might have a million people who don't like the sound of whatever, and there was
Oh yeah.
nothing you could do,
Hmm.
to fix
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and everything. So, but I really liked that. I liked that you were able to to even pay that person back, just to get them off your back,
Yeah,
you know.
totally, totally. I mean,
Um,
with crowdfunding, that's kind of just my go-to. If somebody, even early on, if somebody just feels like they're going to be difficult, I'm just like, never mind. Like I had someone do a paid role in a hard place. Like paid the money, and I just from the back and forth, I just had a sense. I was like, this person's going to be difficult on set. So I basically told him, hey, I'm writing the part. I had to write the part out. We're not going to have that sequence in there, and I refunded them their money, and we parted ways. And there was no drama, no bad feelings, but I just had a feeling like on set this was going to be. I would have been one of those cautionary tales, like the filmmaker I was talking about earlier, and all the drama on set. This would have been in like some kind of drama situation. I could just feel it.
well, and that's good. I mean, that if you're able to avoid that, please avoid it.
Yeah, yeah.
I had one guy who kept wanting to get his daughter in my movie and stuff, and we didn't make enough money. Like he didn't promote it, he didn't help get us the
Right.
money or whatever, and we made enough money to make the thing, but
Mm.
not with the daughter. So I said, sorry. Like, and he was like all mad, and he didn't even put any money in. So it's not
Yeah.
like he gave us money and we screwed him over. It's like he just got mad because, so all of a sudden, anytime we do like a Kickstarter, which I don't even do that anymore because they're just a pain, they're worse than Indiegogo.
Yeah.
But when we did Kickstarter, he's on there. Like, and he'll start commenting or
Mm.
whatever, and we have to delete the comments or whatever, and it's just a pain in the butt dealing with
Yeah.
people like that. So I don't, this industry can be annoying,
Mm.
but the fact is there are so many greater people in this industry
Oh
that
yeah.
outweigh the
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
the negative ones.
Well,
So,
that was my big takeaway from the con. Like I didn't realize how like supportive the horror community really can be. I honestly, now that I've done one, I feel like I've missed a big opportunity on past movies by not doing this. Like I said, we did 15,000 views on the trailer, but we probably saw, I don't know how many, like hundreds of people at our table that like are, when this movie comes out, like they might not have bought nothing at the table, but they're gonna watch the movie. Like they're like actively like waiting for it. And that's just like that little sample of in-person people, and then they're telling friends about it. Like and then you hear the stories about how like the Terrifier guys built up, their career like around cons,
Mm,
doing the shorts and then the first movie, and and I bet you dollars to donuts, those first couple of years when they're doing the shorts and stuff, they were losing money on a lot of the cons, but they just Damien just kept doing
hmm
it, you know what I mean, and built a following, and and look at him now, and I'm not saying I'm going to get to there, but I do think like by not doing it and not doing the theatrical screenings, like I was missing like a big opportunity. So, but talk to me in a year when we see how it pays off.
probably next season.
Yeah, yeah,
It will be back.
right.
But yeah. So that's interesting because you bring up Terrifier and whatnot, and they have a strong presence at the cons and
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
like
they
that.
do.
What made you yourself want to actually promote at the con?
Um, it wasn't just one thing, but so honestly, it was Peter Higuchi like doing the theatrical run, doing the road
Hmm
show. That I started a lot of the things he was saying about the road show and selling merch seemed to me like it could be applicable to cons, So it just like it just started like coalescing. And on a hard place, like Felicia's role was a lot bigger, so like I talked to her a lot more,
hmm
and she's very big in conventions,
I
and
love her.
she was talking about how conventions saved her life, and she was talking about the family atmosphere, and then honestly, like I said, I watching the or listening to the Terrifier producers talking about cons and talking about how they built up their fan base, and I was kind of like, I think I'm missing out on something by not doing this.
Uh-huh.
I'd close myself off from it for years. I always prided myself on like I just go straight to the people. I don't mess around with this conventions and film festivals and blah blah blah. And I think I was really limiting myself. Like like I've done okay, but I think had I jumped on that, although truth be told, maybe I didn't have the material back then. Like I feel like Craving in a Hard Place are like miles above,
hmm
anything I've done previously. So like, maybe it took something like a Hard Place to be able to capitalize
hmm
on it. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always loved the convention. Like I got into conventions in 2010.
Mm,
I'd heard of them, but it wasn't until I went to Texas Frightmare and stuff. And I've seen Felissa at a few of them. She's always like I hadn't seen her in a while, and I was walking around Scares That Care, and I didn't want to interrupt her. She had a
yeah.
whole like, I'm sure you saw like she has
Yeah,
a
yeah.
huge line around the block waiting for her. But
Totally.
I walked by and she was like, she saw me and she was like, Jonathan. So like, the fact that she even knows who I am to me is just like
Yeah.
freaking fantastic. And so I plan to work with her. We've talked about things. It's just
Oh
never,
yeah. Yeah, she's
sadly
great.
things have never have happened yet,
Yeah,
but
when you're talking to her, like at a con or anywhere else, like she gives you 100% of her attention.
hmm
Like she's just so good with people. I mean, at that con, I was shocked. I would say most of the time she had a bigger line than the Terrifier guys did.
wow.
Most of the time. Now that like when they did the David Q&A and stuff like that, it was out the freaking door. But and the Terrifiers had their own like they've done so well. Like they have their own room. There's like the like the regular con room, and then the Terrifier guys and Screamboat. They have their own room. It was crazy. It was
Uh,
crazy.
she hasn't worked with them yet, has she?
Oh, she was in Terrifier 2. So like she did the Q&A with them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember because it's been a little bit since I've seen Terrifier 2.
Yeah.
So I
I
was
I
trying to.
I would assume it was a smaller role, but I
It
haven't seen
was.
it.
I think it was like one of the yeah, it was like
Like a
one of those
cameo.
big scenes, yeah, but it was one of where they had a bunch of people in it or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think. So I it's been a while, but I mean I Terrifier 1 I thought was amazing.
Mm.
Terrifier 2 I thought was maybe even a little bit better. And
Hmm.
Terrifier 3 was just a great continuation. So I'm
That's
looking
cool.
forward to Terrifier 4.
Yeah.
But I'm really like because both Terrifier 2 and 3 were in the theaters. I'm really hoping that this trend continues and
Oh,
that they get
I'm
more.
sure that'll be in the theaters.
Well, somebody called Terrifier mainstream, and I got really mad because it's not. It's not mainstream to me is studio based, you know.
Yeah, well, I think it's been it's being accepted in the mainstream. I don't think it's generated by the mainstream, but like like my cousins in Indiana that don't follow nothing, they know Terrifier, you know.
Yeah, I think that
Like,
was what because they said the person said the reason why Terrifier is such a so I think we were talking about Kevin Smith or something in like
mm,
one of Kevin Smith's movies. And they were like, you can't compare Terrifier to Kevin Smith. Terrifier's like in, and I'm like, like Terrifier's in what is it? Like Spencer's or something or Hot
mm,
Topic or
right,
whatever. Like there's
right, right.
Terrifier stuff. And I'm like, Kevin Smith is Jay and Silent Bob. It's like everywhere. I
Yeah,
don't, I
and
don't know where
like
you're.
it's not what it used to be, but like when he was at his height, you could Jay and Silent Bob was everywhere. Like it
Mhm.
was everywhere. And like in the like mid to late 90s, everywhere.
Everywhere.
It was big.
Comics
It
and
was
and
big,
TV
you know?
shows, like it was
Yeah, yeah.
people talked about like was it Jason
Jason
versus
Mewes.
Freddy
Oh,
had
yeah.
Jason Mewes lookalike and
Yeah.
like and everybody was wondering why didn't they just get Jason in there, like, I guess money and
Right.
their New Line's always looking for ways to get around money, or
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Like I think both of them are, I guess Kevin is more mainstream, than because he actually has made Hollywood movies,
Mm.
as opposed to Terrifier where they were asked to make like Terrifier 3 was supposed to be or not supposed to be, but like a company asked, the guys from for Terrifier if they
Yeah.
would they
Right.
would produce it, but they wouldn't produce like the
Yeah, yeah.
first big scene or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, from
You
what
know,
I understand, I don't know if this is 100% true, but it's what I understand that like didn't the Terrifier guys pretty much like funded three themselves to keep control of it, something like
I
that.
think something like that.
I don't know if that's true. I might be like totally misrepresenting them, but
I mean, they might
I
have
thought
gotten some other
yeah,
investors, but
yeah.
I think they put a lot
Or
more.
yeah, at least that's what I don't know. That's the lore.
And what do you think? There's this like company. Speaking of Kevin Smith, but there's a company that Kevin Smith had used that had done with I think it was Jay and Silent Bob reboot or something, but it was like they are I forgot what they're called, but they have these movies. They'll fund these movies, but they're funded by the fans. So like it's kind of like crowdfunding,
Mm.
except you get like a piece of it or
Mm.
something, you get equity from it. And
Mm.
I
I'm
don't,
not aware.
oh, I'm surprised because it was all over my feed all the time. And
Yeah.
I forgot what the company is called, but they just did that movie, the Man in the White Van,
Mm.
and they produced a couple other like indie films that get
Mm.
released and everything. I was not a big fan of Man in the White Van. I thought it was okay, but
Right.
it was nothing to write home about. But the fact that it's funded by, normal people and not,
Right. Yeah, I
everything's
don't know. I mean, I guess if somebody else is handling it, it would be fine. My thing with equity is like you have to be really careful. Like, and one thing, like filmmakers are so desperate to get their movies done, like they're likely to take on too much equity or like, too many of the investors get too big a piece of the pie. Because, like, as a writer and director on an independent film, like you could end up spending a year or two, from, fundraising to distribution, working on that movie. And if you have, too much of the pie gone, at the end of the day, you're not like you're not really, because you're not upfront going to get compensated fairly for 2 years of work, because you won't be able to, the budget's not big enough. And then on the back end, then it's all gone. Like I am a lot more cautious with equity than I used to be. So like I try to retain as close to 50% of my movie as I can. Now the bigger the movies get, the harder that gets. But also the bigger it gets, the more you can take up front.
Well, and then there's companies out there, like Wild Eye and ITN and some companies that, great companies. I'm not gonna, ever say a negative thing about any distribution company because,
Right.
like, just putting a indie film out and getting it out there is an amazing thing.
Right.
So I love that. But the problem becomes that, like, and I think this is so different than it used to be back in the day. Because I remember when I interviewed, I used to do podcasts back in like 2006. It was a different game for horror
Mm,
back then. Like I remember a guy telling me he made a movie, he got it distributed by Lionsgate, and he made his money back by selling it to Lionsgate and
right.
everything. I
Right.
think he even
Yeah.
made a profit
Yeah. Like a
selling it
straight
to
buyout.
Lionsgate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff. And they don't do that anymore. Like, I don't think. I don't feel
Yeah,
like they do.
at least not at the lower levels. There are people like Wild Eye and ITN that are paying out like small amounts to do stuff like that. They'll for very low budget stuff, they might pay out $5,000 or $10,000, and then that's all the filmmakers will ever see. But if you're making it for a couple of grand, then it's that's not a bad
But if you're
profit.
making for like 20 grand or
Well, then
more,
yeah,
it becomes
then it's I wouldn't do that.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
You
But like
probably
I
have
like
better like
yeah,
self-distributing or something,
yeah. Oh,
or
for
whatever.
sure. But I know a filmmaker that does that works with them regularly and makes his movies for a couple $1,000s, gives them to ITN for, like 10, 15, whatever it is, and then, just goes on to the next one.
Hmm.
And likes doing it. So, bully for them. I personally anymore I can't make movies that cheap. you know
Right.
and it's not like a quality thing or anything like that. It's just like I I want a certain amount of time to shoot my movie, which equals money. I want a certain amount of crew. I don't want to do the skeleton crew, director slash cameraman slash sound guy thing anymore. I want the people that are on my set, I want them, paid at a reasonable legal rate, like, so stuff like that. And if you just do those base level things, you can't make a feature film for $10,000 anymore,
Hmm.
if you're doing all of that. And then I also like I said, I'm a little older. I want a certain level of comfort on my set, certain level of, craft services and food, and all that stuff's money. So like me personally, I won't do another narrative feature under 100,000 myself. And it's just, that's the scale at which I'm comfortable working now. And I made a lot, lower budget before, and I was cool with it, but I'm not that guy anymore.
It's well, it's also a growth thing, like you've outgrown, doing those smaller budgeted ones. Me personally, I mean, I haven't yet. So like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna be working on projects that, for a little bit that are gonna cost, not that much money. But
totally.
even then I need at least 10 grand,
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
I can't, I can't do everything or and not at least pay a couple people,
yeah,
for
totally, totally.
whatever,
Yeah,
at
yeah.
least food.
Yeah.
Food costs money.
And like I said, there's cats making movies for a couple of grand, or, basically for free. And you know what I mean? It's just,
Yeah,
it's a matter of perspective and, your individual, tastes and where you are in
comfort
your
level.
life, comfort level. Yeah. And actually a big thing for me now too is like I used to shoot gorilla all the time. Like I would shoot gorilla. I'm not comfortable shooting gorilla anymore. Like if I'm not permitted or, like allowed to be there, like I can't handle the anxiety,
Right.
Like, are we gonna get
Y-
shut down? I don't know. I can't handle that. You know, like on Hard Place, like we didn't have permits, but we were shooting on private property in a state in which you were could legally shoot on private property, you
Right.
know. So like that was otherwise I wouldn't have done it. When I did Craving, we had to permit for the city of where were we? Burbank, you know. And it's expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Actually in Virginia, so we were shooting a short film, and some all of a sudden I hear like my I'm the producing it, I'm not directing it, but I hear my cameraman come up and be like, hey, um somebody downstairs needs to talk to you, or whatever outside needs to talk to you. So I'm like, all right. So it was like some ladies who were not happy that we were shooting a movie because
Hmm.
the lights were out there and whatnot, but we were on private property, and whatnot. And uh, we had the landowner's permission, to
Right.
shoot there and everything. So they called the cops. The cops came, and the cops asked, do you guys have permits? And so we don't need permits because we have the landowner's permission. And they're like, all right. Because in Virginia, like, they don't get called for this. But if you
Right.
shoot in LA, oof. Gotta be, yeah. What I've heard, if you even like shoot your own movie in your own house,
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
be in trouble by this,
Yeah, you can. I mean,
city or whatever.
it very rarely rare. I mean, I actually don't know of any instance where it actually happened, but it is possible to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know either, but I've heard that. Like
yeah,
that I've heard that
yeah,
technically you're not
yeah,
even supposed to
yeah. You're
shoot.
not. Yeah, you're not supposed. In I think it's L.A. County proper. I think it might even differ like corporate to corporate, like Culver City or Burbank. Like I know Culver City is really difficult. We almost got shut down once. We were shooting at a church, and uh one of the C stands leg of one of the C stands was like 2 or 3 inches on the sidewalk, and the cops came and tried to shut us down. I mean, well, they would have, but we had a couple of producers went and like sweet talked him, and we got out of it.
Well, I remember I was an idiot because I was young. I was like, I want to say 16, maybe 17. My friend had a band, and so we decided to go shoot a music video in Colonial Williamsburg.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever been there or not, but it's a historic, like, landmark kind of like place, and it took like literally 5 seconds before somebody came up and said, no, 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 you can't do that. And we're like, what? We didn't know. Like, we weren't supposed to shoot in a public space where there's lots of tourists walking around, and that we weren't going to be able to get people's and
Hmm.
like in that area. And so I've never done that again. But it was very embarrassing because we just had no clue, and once you learn that stuff, don't do that, you got to be very careful where you shoot. Um, and whatnot. So I guess the last kind of like stuff that I kind of want to bring up is,
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about sort of the way that I guess the media has been, about a film and horror,
Mm.
because horror kind of goes through different stuff. Sometimes horror is very well liked by people and things going on, and then sometimes is very much not, you
Mm.
know. What is your opinion on like media and just, trying to get your movie out there?
Well, I think in the last few years it's gotten harder for smaller movies to get press, like whether it's horror or not, but especially in horror. You know, like people like to point to like Fangoria and Dread Central and stuff like that, say they're like really champions of indie films. But unless you know one of the writers, it is really hard to get like press. Like back in the day when I started, I could email, Fangoria, Dread Central, get, blurbs, get, reviews, like all my early movies, like reviewed by Fangoria, Dread Central, Joe Blow, like all those. Like today, Like I mean, I personally probably sent out like a dozen different emails to Fangoria, Dread Central, Bloody Disgusting. They don't even return my messages these days. Like, and I think a lot of filmmakers, unless you know somebody there, are like or pay for it, are pretty much like the same. You know,
Or
like
they've heard of you,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that kind of
But
thing.
yeah, I can't even get a response. Like I had to actually like go through, like Felissa to get any kind of press for, from those outlets from for Hard Place, and still haven't got it. I'm getting ready to hire a PR company that specializes in horror to so I can get some legitimate press for the movie. Otherwise, it's just it's like smaller outlets, which are fine, but like it's really hard, man. Without some money to back you up, it's like it is really hard to like get any kind of like legitimate press.
And you got to put that into the budget of the movie, or
Yeah,
whatever sometimes.
you absolutely should. Like, I mean, in my case, unfortunately, like our budget was spent after
Yeah.
production, so everything I'm doing now is like kind of. I mean, I guess it's technically in the budget because I am gonna repay myself when money comes in, but. I mean, I'm out of pocket a good chunk of change just on marketing, and will continue to do so. I'm not done. I mean, I'm getting ready to spend quite a bit on this PR firm.
I love marketing. My so there's this guy that does he talks about he's wrote a book called You're Gonna Need a Bigger Story, and
Mm,
it talks about transmedia, outlets and stuff like that. And
interesting.
I interviewed him, and we were talking about Disney, like in
Mm,
Marvel, right?
mhm.
And how like he and I were talking about how it's surprising, like how, what's his name? Captain America. They didn't do anything for the 4th of July with Captain America,
Right.
right? Like why not like have, and they had all these like Twitter accounts,
Hmm.
I guess back then, but that would be X accounts or whatever, which sounds weird.
Mm,
Um, but they would have these Twitter accounts where they would have like the characters and everything. I'm like, why aren't they talking to each other? I've done this for my own characters
oh,
and
right.
everything, where
Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
have conversations with each other and
Yeah, yeah.
everything. And it might be about what's coming up or, a storyline. Like, why isn't Captain America right now on Twitter not chatting with another person, on another character on Twitter,
Right.
getting people interested in the new Captain America movie? I don't understand this because that's what I would do,
Yeah.
and that's marketing. That's an easy marketing, social media marketing. That's to me that's easy.
Right.
It doesn't cost any money to do that.
Hmm.
Maybe unless you had to pay the the one person that's controlling those accounts that can go into each account and then make them talk to each other. And it's crazy that we're not doing different stuff just to get people excited. I feel like even the big Hollywood movies aren't marketing enough, and that's just my opinion. I don't know. You might have a different opinion on that.
No, not really. Marketing's tough. I mean, the stuff you're talking about. What's hard for an independent film? Like now, if it's Captain America, there's hundreds, millions of people that are interested in following that. When you're doing a rinky-dink, independent film, and you set up a Twitter account for a character in that film, you know what I mean? You have to
Nobody
build
knows
that.
who they
Yeah,
are.
nobody knows who that is, and you have to build the following. Like it's really hard to. I mean, like there's a debate amongst filmmakers, a lot in my distribution group about whether or not they should set up individual social media pages for their different movies. You know, and some people say yes, you absolutely have to have them. Some people say, you know what? I spent freaking 10 years trying to build up my company page and I have like this many followers and I'm going to start a new page like for this movie and build it from zero and depending on the size of the movie, say you have a $500,000 movie, right? And you start a social media page for it and you have like 400 followers. Like it almost would be better to have no page than a page with 400
No, I don't
followers.
think so.
Yeah.
I think 400 is better than
Well,
zero.
it's a perception thing. So
Right.
like when you go to when you're trying to bring in new fans or you're trying to interest a larger distributor, like they look at that stuff. And they look at your social media like 400 followers. Like that means nobody is not enough people are interested in this. It's not like you have to have more like momentum.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I get it, but
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, especially indie projects or whatever. When you were saying like you had to start from scratch basically
Hmm.
and start a whole page and everything, and maybe you might only get 400 people on this page, but you had a page that had like, a million, people or whatever. Well, I mean, those 400 people may not have been, from the 1 million people. So those 400 people might be, you can say, you can write something saying, hey, check out this, my page for that. Now you got a million plus 400.
Hmm.
I particularly think that like anything you throw out there, is very good, is very good for you, to try. Now, uh, it's tough, like building, like you've got what, 2,000 people on at least all my pages, on uh was it Instagram. Only 2,000. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
I
I
like
mean,
I
that's similar to mine. I
yeah,
look at.
and then I tell my brother that, and he goes, and that's of the world, right? Like 2,000 people in the whole world of people,
Yeah,
like, and it really is small. Like, I mean, when people get a million, oh my God, they're excited,
yeah, yeah,
right? And I would be excited too. I'm not gonna lie,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and there's something to be said for having like a small engaged following. Like for example, my YouTube channel, like in the grand scheme of things, it's a small channel. I have I think 30,000 subscribers now, but it's like they're engaged. Like I make more off ad revenue from those 30,000 than some people do with hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
hmm.
Because my subscribers are engaged.
Well, good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really hope that this movie, A Hard Place, gets a lot more attention and blows up and becomes the next Terrifier, franchise or whatever. And then you're able to move on. You win your next one. You have your third trilogy. People have already watched Craving, and Craving's still on Tubi, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's on Tubi, Amazon. It hit Fossum recently.
Awesome. That's a new one to me. Like, even though I think
Yeah,
it's been around, I just like all of a sudden I'd be like looking up movies and I'll be like, is this on Tubi? And it'll be on Fossum instead. And I'll
yeah,
be like,
it might possibly I watch revenue streams from different areas, and Tubi had been number one for filmmakers for a few years now, for the most part. But I have a feeling Fossum might be a contender. I mean, it's not quite there yet, but we'll see.
good. And so yeah, Fossum, and then there's Amazon still, which I think doesn't it have issues with like indie films sometimes, like harder to get
Yeah,
on there?
yeah, it's harder than it used to be. I mean, there was a time period where they had totally stopped taking documentaries altogether from independent filmmakers, but
Oh wow.
they started again. But it's still like most of my stuff still gets on Amazon. Occasionally, something will get pulled, but for the most part, I've been pretty lucky there. I had a really low budget documentary last year that made like I want to say like 40 or 50,000 on Amazon, like all on rentals. Like it freaking killed, man. It made
Eh,
more money than Craving did that year.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about doing a documentary using the videos like this or
Oh
something,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
just having a talking heads thing, or whatever. But I
Hmm.
was like, it's a lot of editing, which is
Yep.
fine. That would have just taken me like a couple months maybe to like fully put it together with all the other stuff I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
But then I was like, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Like if
Well,
this is because there's so many of them
yeah,
out
yeah.
there right now. Like you even do some.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you the two problems you'll have. One, outside of YouTube, and even on YouTube, filmmaking content is not very lucrative, like just in general. And when it comes to like Amazon and Tubi and all those others, especially if most everything or a lot of your content is remote like this, you'll have trouble with quality control. Because like they won't take you know how you have artifact like on your background, like you would have trouble with that.
Okay. Well, understandable. You
Yeah.
know,
Now
that's
you like it could still potentially make something on YouTube, but I don't think the major platforms would take it.
I mean,
Possibly.
possibly. But even though I don't like, I was thinking about it, I started working on it a little bit, and I was like, nah, I just,
Yeah, it's a lot of
you know,
it's a lot of work.
it's a
Yeah.
lot of work, but it's not like it's not. I'm not a very good editor. I'm gonna
Mm.
learn how to edit. I got a book like Final Cut Pro for Dummies, kind
Oh,
of
cool.
thing. I'm gonna try to start learning that stuff because I mean these days waiting for people to do stuff it just takes too long. And I'm getting old, man. I'm like 43 doesn't sound old, but it is old, man.
Hmm.
And this business, you need to be constantly getting something
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And if I have to wait for my editor to get done with this paid jobs to work for me and
Yeah.
whatnot, and I can't afford to pay him what the freelance payers pay him.
Yeah.
I gotta wait, and then so I'm like, well, if I start doing it myself, maybe
Yeah.
I can get things done. But I'm not good at color correction and sound and stuff like that. I have to get somebody else to fix those things, so
Yeah.
for sure. But I mean, it is what it is. But well, thank you so much. And so where is this will be in sometime in February, I think like the first Tuesday in February.
Okay.
Where do you think a hard place will be by then? Like,
Well, we're doing our road show. I think our next screening is in Noblesville, Indiana. I believe it's around the first or second week of February.
nice.
And then we'll be hitting some more theaters in the Midwest through February and March. And then hopefully some drive-ins across the country by then. And then we'll hit streaming in May.
Are you gonna be there for any of them or?
Yeah, so like every time we premiere in a state, I go to the premieres. And then the movie usually plays in the theater for like 2 weeks after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'll
So,
go for all the premieres.
oh, you go for all the premieres? Wow.
Yeah,
So,
at least in every state. Like I'll do an Indiana premiere and a Wisconsin premiere and an Illinois premiere. I did the Ohio premiere, and then we had a Reno premiere,
that's
LA
awesome.
premiere. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm very happy you're out there doing that stuff because, I mean, well, speaking of Kevin Smith again, Kevin Smith did that. That's
Yeah,
what he would
yeah,
do
yeah,
is
yeah.
road shows
Yeah.
and stuff. And even the Broken Lizard guys, that's how they started is
Yep.
doing road shows. So like it helps,
Yeah.
especially if you go to like college campuses and
Right.
things like that where they'd be like, "Oh, what is this you know, crazy movie, or whatever crazy horror film.
Hmm.
But I wish you luck on that because that getting that out there, is wonderful, especially if there's like, even, I'll look at my Regal, like I've got the Regal,
Hmm.
unlimited plan, and even the Hollywood movies are struggling to get people in the seats. So
Oh
if the
yeah.
indie films are getting people in the seats, man, that's a big news, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I mean, so far we've almost sold out every one, so we'll see. Hopefully that continues.
Knock on wood, man. I really hope so.
Yeah.
So everybody go check out is there a website or anything
Yeah.
that people
Yeah.
can
Yeah. Yeah. www.ahardplacemovie.com.
and then you guys can see it's basically like being in a band or something, have
Yeah.
your little tour dates,
Totally. Yeah. And you're selling merch. You have your little
It's
table. Yeah.
it is like being a band. Holy crap.
It's totally like being in a band. Yes.
Then you have your Q&A is
Yeah.
whenever they're talking to the audience
Yep.
mid
Yeah. Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I think that does rock. I think that is I
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about it is eh, I love doing it. Like don't get me wrong, but I would have really loved this in like my 30s.
yeah.
Now I'm kind of like like because we did the Dayton premiere on a Sunday, and then I went back to Georgia for 1 day, and then flew to Reno for the Reno screening on Wednesday, and then Days of the Dead Friday through Sunday, and then 2 days off now, and then I'm in Florida, you know. So it's like bam, 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 and I'm wiped out, man.
You're wiped out. You're ready. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you're not even done.
Yeah,
Like,
and this
yeah.
is really just the beginning of it. Like, so there'll be, I mean, almost a screening a week in March, and then
Jesus.
and then who knows what's going to happen with the drive-in thing. Like, I'm hoping that blows up, but at least with that, I don't think most drive-ins even have the facility to do Q&As and A's and all that. So a lot of them I won't have to go to. At least I don't think, but we'll see.
I mean, it's still cool having your stuff in a drive-in
Oh
because,
yeah,
like,
yeah. And I'm definitely gonna go to a couple just to check it out. But actually, we shot in a drive-in for the opening of A Hard Place takes place in
eh,
a drive-in. We shot in a big one in Dayton. So we are gonna do a screening there in the summer, but it's not part of this.
yeah, well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
California was
Yeah.
my first time ever going to when I was living there. It was my first time ever going to a drive-in. We don't really have them around here in Virginia, so
Uh,
that I got to go see. I saw like newer movies that kind of
right.
sucked. It would have been cooler to watch
Yeah,
like was it
yeah.
Texas Chainsaw or something on the
Totally.
drive-in, but I got to see like Knives Out,
Hmm.
and some other movie at that time. It's 2020, so
Yeah, yeah. That'd be cool.
but yeah, that's neat. But I would love to see your movie in a drive-in. And do you know any tour dates ever? You coming to the East Coast, like Virginia?
Nothing's set yet. So it's like I said, you start like we start in Indiana, and if that goes well, we move out and move out and
And
move
you move
out.
out, you keep moving
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
all right.
yeah, yeah,
Well, there you go. Hopefully that's it. People,
yeah.
get your butts in there.
Totally.
I'll let some of my Indiana people know. Come check out your show so that they can support you.
Yeah,
Support independent film because this, they don't have. You guys don't have the marketing,
yeah,
thing that the big studios should have, or whatever,
yeah. We
So,
need all the help we can get.
exactly. Well, everybody go check out Jason's movie, hardplacemovie.com, right?
Hmm.
And check that out. I'll put the link down in the bottom so people can
Great.
check that out there. And yes, everybody go see it because it looks awesome. Like I can't wait. If it's better than Craving, which it sounds like you're saying it is,
I think it
I'm
is.
I'm ex- I'm excited, you know. So everybody go check it out. And until then, everybody, not sure when this will be back. This kind of seems to be sporadic. Whenever I get a guest, I'll get them on. But thank you, Jason, for coming on and chatting
All
with
right.
me. Until then, everybody, have a good one. Bye.